We are filming this live stream, and we have over 15,000 people joining us from about 130 different countries around the world. So let's give them a warm welcome. As you can tell, we're having a good time. And we have 6 languages translated. We have Spanish, we have French, we have Russian, we have German, and we have Italian being translated simultaneously during this live stream. Now, one of the reasons we decided to do live stream events is because we wanted to give people a glimpse or a portion of a week-long event. And the book, Becoming Supernatural, is a kind of clean description of a lot of the things that we do in our week-long events. And of course, we've progressed it since the time we published that book. But many people that are in different parts of the world that couldn't travel have requested if they could take a peek at what we do. So what we do is we do these small little live streams to give people content, to give them information, to give them knowledge. And as you know, as you begin to learn information, you forge new connections in your brain. That's what learning is. And by you interacting with information, you begin to upgrade the circuitry in your brain. You add new stitches into the three-dimensional tapestry. And science tends to be the language that demystifies the process. And we use science in our studies to be able to build a model of understanding. And when people can teach that information back, nerve cells that fire together, wire together, they begin to install the circuitry and create long-term memories or more permanent connections in the brain. So remembering then is sustaining those connections. And we know then, if you give people the right science, if they can understand what they're doing and why they're doing it, the how will get easier because they can assign meaning to what they're doing and put more intention behind it. So the next step is to take that philosophy, that theory, that information that's stored in the thinking neocortex, in the intellectual brain, the analytical mind, and now, because it's philosophy, the next thing to do is to personalize it, to demonstrate it, to apply it, to initiate it in some way. And in our events, we give people numerous opportunities to get their behaviors to match their intentions, to become conscious of their unconscious states of mind and body, get their actions equal to their thoughts. And it's a refining process because you're doing something inside of you. And yet, if you do it properly and you follow the instructions and you get your mind and body working together, you're going to have an experience. And that experience then should transform your biology in some way. In a sense, experience enriches circuitry in your brain. Now, you're laying down more connections by your interaction with an event. When those neurons string into place, the brain makes a chemical. And now the chemical is a feeling. And now when you start to feel more whole, when you start to feel more unlimited, when you start to feel more abundant, now your body's in the game. Now you're beginning to embody the truth of that knowledge. And now the information from that experience is selecting and instructing new genes. And you begin to change a person's genetic future. And we know from our week-long events that people can change their gene expression in 4 days. We've measured it. And the gene expression is usually for the greater good of the body. So what we want to do is not just do it once. We want to be able to replicate the experience and have the mind and body experience it over and over again to such a degree that the body now knows how to do it as well as the conscious mind. When we get that point where the mind and body are aligned in that way, now it's innate in you. It's second nature, it's easy, it becomes familiar. You don't have to think about it as much with your conscious mind. It becomes more automatic. And now you're beginning to master that philosophy. Now you're moving into a state of being. And so we decided to do these live stream events to give people a glimpse of what we're doing and use the knowledge and information, and that's exactly what we'll do. We'll take knowledge, and we'll initiate it from a philosopher to initiate to a master, from knowledge to experience to wisdom, from mind to body to soul, from thinking to doing to being, to learning it with your hands, applying it with your heart, learning with your head, applying it with your hands, knowing it by heart. And people around the world are beginning to make it easier. And we have research now that shows that people can literally self-regulate and sustain those states for an extended period of time. In fact, it's a skill. They know that they know how to do it. And our measurements show that it's easy for them. And they can do it now with their eyes open as well as their eyes closed. So what's the significance of that? When they return back to their lives, it's no longer just something that they do in their meditations. They want to do it with their eyes open and self-regulate and maintain a state of being. And it is about your life. So what we've done then is we've decided to talk about how we program people for a subconscious or mystical experience. And we have used this particular way of doing it for over a year now, and we have brain scans to show it's possible. And when I wrote the book, You Are the Placebo, I was studying extensively how we program ourselves subconsciously. And I just remember when I came across reading this one particular paper, I was so mad at myself. I was so frustrated with me because I realized how unconsciously I was programmed into limitation. And what I mean by that is so many people have been programmed into believing they need something outside of them to take away some feeling of emptiness or lack within them. And so whenever they feel that lack, whenever they feel that emptiness, if you can present something that's going to make it go away, and the person actually uses it, and they notice a change in their internal state, the moment they notice that change in their internal state, they're going to pay attention to what caused it. And now they become dependent on whatever that is, whether it's a pill, whether it's a video game, whether it's a shopping spree, whether it's a television show, something they're relying on in their outer world to change their inner state becomes a subconscious program. Are you with me still? So I was in my room in Orlando, Florida, and I was packing my bags, and I had been out of the country for a couple of weeks, and it was my last stop before I headed to the west coast of the United States. And I had my bag open, and I was just packing my bag, and I turned on the TV just so I could catch up on what was going on in the politics in the United States. And I turned on the TV, and I don't really watch much TV, so when television commercials come on, I'm typically insulted by them because they appeal to such limited consciousness. And so here's the television commercial. I'm watching this woman and it's all in black and white, and she's wearing a bathing suit, and she looks like maybe she's in her late 50s or 60s, but she looks very trim, very fit, and she looks very healthy. And here she is just about ready to jump in the pool, and the commercial starts out with, "You know, Jane," and this is the voice in her head, "as you age, your immune system gets weaker and weaker and weaker." And the words weaker, weaker, weaker on there. And I'm looking at the television commercial like, are you kidding me? And here she is swimming, and then they say, well, you know, if you've ever had chicken pox, now here's what the person's looking at. They're looking at this woman that looks about their age, and they look way better than they do. And they think, wow, if her immune system is weakening, my immune system must be really weakening. And then, if you've ever had chicken pox, yeah, I've had chicken pox, strike two, you could be possibly getting shingles virus. And all of a sudden, it goes from a black and white image to a color image. And there's these lesions on this woman's body that looks like a 4th-degree burn. I've never seen, in all the cases I've looked at in shingles, anything like this. And the moment you see those shingles, you have to agree it's going to change your internal state. Yes or no? And the moment you start feeling altered inside of you, you lean in and pay attention to what's causing it. And now they've captured your attention. And now whatever they say past that point, you will begin to become suggestible to. And suggestibility is your ability to accept, to believe, and to surrender to information without ever analyzing it. And when you do that, it bypasses your critical facilities and it begins to program you subconsciously. How many people are with me? So then, here comes a television commercial, and it says, this drug is to strengthen your immune system. Okay? And then I hear, in the next line, that if you are pregnant, planning on being pregnant, or you have a weakened immune system, this drug is not for you. And I just remember looking at what they're doing. They're confusing the conscious mind, and that's exactly how hypnosis works. It's a disorientation of the inhibitory processes of the mind. And the conscious mind gets a little confused, and you can program subconsciously. And I'm kind of watching this whole thing. And I had just finished writing the book, so now I'm really paying attention to what's going on here. And then, of course, it says at the very beginning that it's used to prevent shingles virus. And then at the end, a salt and pepper haired man in a very nice uniform there leans in and says, day 17, I think I'll give it a try. And I look at the screen and I say, wait a second, you just told me it's to prevent shingles, not to treat it. He's at day 17. This won't do him any good. And I realize that they're programming people for the very condition that they have the solution for. Are you with me still? And programming or conditioning only requires an image or a brand with a feeling or an emotion. And if you take a stimulus and a response of an image and a feeling, that thought and the feeling is beginning to create a conditioning process to the body, and you're conditioning your body with information emotionally. Are you with me still? And so when the body then is in situations that feel relatively close to that emotion, you will begin to think about the solution to that problem. And now you're dependent on whatever that substance or external exogenous substance is. Does that make sense? But there's something else that has to happen. Because when you look into your television set, there's a cluster of networks of neurons called the orienting response. And what it does is it tracks movement. And even researchers that have written articles about how programmable television is have admitted that once TV is on, they can't not look at it. And because it captures the orienting response. So when you sit down and you look into that screen, it's called programming for a very specific reason. As you look into that screen, you notice that you don't move much. You notice that you are kind of in a still and in trance state. And when you're in trance, you're not analyzing and you're not thinking. And if you're not analyzing and you're not thinking, you begin to slow your brain waves down from beta brain waves to what's called alpha brain waves. And in alpha, you begin to suppress activity in your neocortex, and all of a sudden you start to open the door between the conscious mind and the subconscious mind. And if you're watching television and it's late at night and you're watching the late night fright commercials, you know those, you need a flu shot because there's little men dressed up as bugs with your name on it, and they're running around after you, and people actually, because it's so much like a dream, so many commercials look like some type of dream, they're appealing to the subconscious. So then, if you're in the right brainwave state and it's late at night and your body's almost falling asleep, you never been on the couch at that moment? And you're kind of awake and you're looking into that television and you have no analytical facilities. And they're telling you what to think. They're telling you how to feel, and you're believing that information as if it's true. And you're beginning to program your autonomic nervous system, produce very specific chemicals to reflect that information. How many people are with me? So you see then that people are programmed in a sense, for limitation. And that was the part that was disturbing to me, because I realized that I was part of that. And that so many times, the moment we feel sick, the moment we feel out of balance, the moment we feel in some way separate or altered, our brain starts to look for solutions. And if they plant those solutions for you, then you'll be reliant on something outside of you. Does that make sense? So there's a correlation then. As you begin to slow your brain waves down, you begin to increase your level of trance. Yes or no? And if you increase your level of trance, you increase your level of suggestibility. And because you are suggestible, you're less analytical with information. And the door between the conscious mind and the subconscious mind opens. How many people understand? So we thought, well, why don't we start programming people for something more unlimited? And I was at a lunch in Zurich before I got here, and I was with a group of businessmen, and I was doing a talk for them. And one of the men said, so would you call this then positive brainwashing? And I said, no, it's more like reprogramming. And you can literally reprogram the subconscious to work in our favor instead of against us. And that's the purpose behind this whole little event that we're doing. And so, many years ago, when I started having mystical experiences, many times right before the mystical moment, I would see these with my eyes open or with my eyes closed, these very complex geometric patterns, these very complex standing waves of information. And when you see these, they're not known. They're just something outside of what you typically see. And they're alive, and they move, and they iterate within themselves, and they're changing patterns. But as you look, there's wholeness within wholeness within wholeness. There's so much wholeness that if you divide it, there's still wholeness. And when you look at them, you become fascinated by them, and you can't take your eyes off them. And in a sense, you start moving into trance. And I knew that when I had those moments, that in the next moment, my pineal gland was going to transduce that standing wave of information into profound imagery. I was going to have a transcendental moment. And the only way that we could describe this was saying it was like a kaleidoscope. And so a very dear and beloved friend of mine, who I admire so much, we decided to put this kaleidoscope together, and the only way that we could do it is we looked at all the different patterns of kaleidoscopes that they had on the internet, and all those were computer generated. And when you use computer generation, we felt like it left out a lot of possibility, a lot more realism. So we rented this camera called a Big Red, and it had a camera that went to a smaller camera, that went to a smaller camera, went to a smaller camera, to this little cable. And we put that little fiber optic cable inside the kaleidoscope and put a motor on it in a studio. And the motor turned the kaleidoscope, and we were filming inside, and we had a black background behind it. And when you film it like that, the kaleidoscope would turn like this, and then the oils and the crystals would fall, and it would accelerate, and it would be discontinuous. And so we found the person that was very, very meticulous and very skilled in technology. And 60 frames per second, he went through every second and created more of a smooth and continuous flow of the kaleidoscope, so it kind of moved in a more rhythmic pattern, so it wasn't discontinuous and broke a state of trance. Are you with me? And so he disappeared for 3 months. We couldn't find him because it was a lot of work. And he composed great music to go with it. And so we started using the kaleidoscope as a way to move people into trance and increase their level of suggestibility. And so when you gaze into the kaleidoscope, when we looked at our brain scans, what we realized was that people moved into a state of low-level alpha and theta with their eyes open. Now, you in this audience that have been meditating for the last 2 days with me have been learning how to change your brain waves and go through those different levels. And most of the time, when your brain chemistry changes at night and melatonin levels go up because there's less light being picked up by your eye, the chemistry of melatonin causes your brain waves to slow down from beta to alpha to theta to delta. And most of the time, when people go to bed at night, they slide right down there very quickly. They escape very quickly, and they go through those different brainwave states, but they're not conscious of doing it. And when they wake up in the morning, and they're in a circadian rhythm, and their body is anticipating sunrise, all of a sudden melatonin starts turning to serotonin, and all of a sudden your brainwaves start picking up into beta, and you go from delta to theta to alpha to beta, and now you're conscious and awake. And in beta brainwave patterns, you tend to pay more attention to your outer world. That's healthy. So then, when you're aroused, though, by the hormones of stress, now you move into that high beta brainwave pattern, and now you're overly analytical. In fact, you're trying to figure things out. And when you're aroused by those stress hormones, and the emotions of those hormones are a record of the past, our research shows that when you're analyzing some problem, some condition, something about yourself within that emotion, you're making your brain worse because you're driving it further into higher beta brainwave patterns. Because as you think about the problem, you start producing more of the chemistry, and then you start analyzing, and all of a sudden you get caught in this loop. How many people understand? And people stay stuck for many, many, many years in that high beta brainwave pattern, and now they're reliant on something outside of them to change that state, whether it's a drug, a drink, whatever it is, a computer game, something to help them to change their internal state. Does this make sense? So then when you gaze into the kaleidoscope and you open your awareness and you rest your attention on the space that your pineal gland occupies in space, and you tune into the energy of the mystical, as you sense the space and you hold your attention on that pineal gland, as you sense space and you look at it, you're not analyzing and thinking. And when you look at the kaleidoscope, our research shows that it bypasses the perceptual networks in your brain where you associate with known things. In other words, when you gaze into the kaleidoscope, you don't see anything familiar. You don't see any people that you recognize, any objects that you recognize. There's nothing of form that will associate and activate associated neurological networks. And when you do that, the brain begins to slow down and begin to move into trance. And when you move into trance now, you become suggestible to information. And when you slow your brain waves down with your eyes open into a level of theta, theta is a hypnotic state. That is when your body is literally resting and your mind is still conscious and awake. And it's that place between wakefulness and sleep, and that's the door. And the door between the conscious mind and the subconscious mind is wide open, and you're very programmable for information. How many people understand so far? So we have brain scans to show that people are gazing into the kaleidoscope with their eyes open instead of with their eyes closed can relax their body. And as they relax their body and they practice relaxing with their eyes open, they move into alpha. Now, you can function in alpha with your eyes open. When you drive down the road in your car on the freeway and you just drove 45 kilometers or 45 miles, and you have no idea the road was in front of you, you have no idea, you didn't feel your body, and you forgot about time. That you were in an imaginary state of alpha, and the brain was in a state of trance. Are you with me? And your inner world all of a sudden becomes more real than your outer world. And I'm watching many of you this week when I'm teaching, I'm watching you process information, and you're present, and you're listening, and you're in a low-level beta. And then all of a sudden, you stop, and you freeze your brain, and you move into alpha. And when you move into alpha, now you're making your inner world more real than your outer world, and the brain is beginning to consolidate that information neurologically. You're freezing a frame, and you begin to emboss it neurologically in your brain. That's how I know you're learning. By the same means, if you're in a very high level of beta, your brain can't switch to alpha, which means it's not a time to learn. It's not a time to be creative. It's not a time to open your heart. It's not a time to go within and take your attention off the outer world. There's imminent danger and a threat in the outer world. And people, of course, have difficulty practicing without knowledge and information on how to change that state in their brain and in their body. And that's what we're doing here, moving into more of the present moment. Does that make sense? So let me show you some pictures here to help you understand this process. What do you say? So take a look at different brainwaves here. Take a look at beta brainwaves. Beta brainwave patterns, the purpose of beta brainwaves is when your brain is trying to create meaning between what's going on in your outer world and what's going on in your inner world, it's got to process a lot of sensory information. You're hearing things, you're seeing things, you're feeling things, you're tasting things, you're smelling things, and all of this information coming into the brain has to be integrated. And if you measure the brain, this is what's called beta brainwave patterns. And in beta, as I said, the outer world is more real than the inner world. Close your eyes, disconnect from the external environment, slow your breathing down, play some soft music in the background, sit your body down and not get it up and eat and taste and smell and feel and experience. Less sensory information going to the brain causes your brain waves to slow down into alpha. And when you start moving into alpha, now your inner world starts becoming more real than your outer world, and you see more in pictures. In images. It is the realm of imagination. In beta, you hear somebody talking in your head a lot of times. That voice in your head. That's beta. Are you with me? So as you begin to slow it down, alpha all of a sudden becomes the creative state. You can hear the outer world, but more of your attention is on the inner world. And you know when you're talking to someone and you say, "Hey, I just said something to you. Did you hear me?" And they're in their inner world, they're in alpha, and they're disconnecting or lowering the volume to their outer world. And it's the frontal lobe that lowers the volume to the circuits in the brain that process space and time. So a person can begin to make their inner world more real and no longer be distracted by their outer world. Does that make sense? You've been doing that all week, yes? And then all of a sudden, if your body can get so restful and so relaxed and so out of survival that it can begin to rest in a light sleep, and your mind is still conscious and still awake, you're in theta. And look how slow those brainwave patterns are in theta. Now, the lights are going out in the neocortex, the memory bank of the known self, the neocortex that plugs you into three-dimensional reality. All of a sudden, you're diminishing brain activity there, and now you're getting beyond yourself. You're getting beyond your identity. Now, I used to think delta was deep sleep, but now I know that we have students that are processing delta, and their energy in their brain is off the chart. Their body is sound asleep, and they're transcendental. They're somewhere else. Now, look at gamma down here. If you look, gamma looks faster than beta, and it is an aroused state. And high beta is an arousal from survival, from the stress hormones. And you feel fear, you feel aggression, you feel hostility, you feel anger, you feel pain. That's the arousal that's created in high beta. This arousal that's created in gamma creates a kind of super consciousness or super awareness. The person has more energy in their brain. Are you with me still? So check it out. First 2 years of a child's life, there are brain waves, a very slow frequency here. Here's frequencies, measuring different frequencies. Very low frequency. First 2 years of a child's life, they're in delta brainwave patterns, 0.5 to 4 cycles per second. They're asleep with their eyes open. As they begin to progress between the ages of 2 and 6, they move into theta brainwave patterns, 4 to 8 cycles per second. Now, as they begin to interact in their environment, their brainwaves pick up, but we could say then, for the first 6 years of their life, they have no analytical mind, and they're completely programmable. And you can say, big boys don't cry, little girls should be seen and not heard. Money is the root of all evil. You're like me, you get sick easily. And all that information goes in unencoded or unedited, and it begins to lay down, just like a recording, a subconscious program. How many people are with me? So the child then begins to interact with the environment. He sticks his finger in the light socket, notices a change in his internal state, feels pain, and all of a sudden wakes up and looks and narrows his focus to see what causes it. And he learns to associate that thing with pain, and all of a sudden he begins to move away from it, but now he's paying more attention to his outer environment because he's learning the laws. Are you with me still? Now, as they progress, brain waves will move into 3 levels of beta. Check out low-level beta here. Then you look at mid-range beta. Here's low-level beta. Here's mid-range beta. Now look at high beta. High beta is 3 times as high as low-level beta. Now, you're all in low-level beta. You're all listening to me. You're relaxed. You're poised. You're paying attention. There's no threats in the environment, so your brain waves are relatively low in beta. But if I said to you, can you come on up and do the lecture, what I just did so far, you would start perking up into a little bit faster brainwave frequency. And I think of mid-range beta like eustress, like good stress. When you're getting ready to do something and you're a little bit nervous, but you're also kind of present and you're going to use that energy and you know what you're doing, that's mid-range beta. But up here is emergency. And this is when you're in a very, very highly aroused state. And no new information can enter the nervous system that is not equal to that emotion because it's not relevant at the time. Now check out gamma. Gamma, this range here of gamma looks a lot like high beta, yes? And we see when our students move into a very high state of gamma, and I will show you the brain scans tomorrow when I talk about the pineal gland, you'll see them move right through high beta. And they're sitting there and we're watching them move into high beta and they were just in theta. And all of a sudden they're moving into high beta and we're thinking, what is going on with this person? But what we found out is they just kept going. They moved right through high beta into gamma. And some of them up into a very high range of gamma. And now the arousal, though, is not coming from anything in their outer world. The arousal is coming from the body releasing energy back into the brain. How many people understand? Make sense? So check it out. We can say then, when you're born, you're totally subconscious mind. Why do we know that? Because your brain waves are very slow. And for the most part, you begin to learn by different positive and negative identifications and associations. A good example of a positive identification is when a child is hungry and she cries out. She learns to associate crying out with being fed. So every time she's hungry, she cries out and gets fed. A good example of a negative association is when you put your finger on the hot stove. You learn to associate pain with that white thing in the corner, and all of a sudden you begin to shape what we call habits and behaviors. Are you with me still? Somewhere between the ages of 6 and 9, we begin to form what's called our analytical mind or our critical mind. It totally finishes developing somewhere between the ages of 9 and 10, but for most people between 7 and 9. And that analytical mind then acts as a separation from the conscious mind from the subconscious mind. Now your conscious mind, we've been saying all along this week, is 5% of your total mind. It's made of things like logic and reasoning, which gives rise to your will, your faith, your creativity. Now this other 95% is made up of all those subconscious habits, emotional reactions, behaviors. And they're running behind the scenes of your awareness. You're unconscious to them. Are you with me still? So then the analytical mind is always working. It's thinking in terms of good and bad, right and wrong, positive and negative, male and female, success and failure. Because the brain is divided, the mind processes things in duality. Now there's nothing wrong with that. I love my analytical mind. When you're learning, when you're navigating ethically in your life, you need an analytical mind. But when the hormones of stress are thrown into the equation, now a person becomes overly analytical or overly focused. Have you had that experience? And when you do that, you drive your brain into higher states of beta brainwave patterns. Does that make sense? So check it out now. The whole purpose of meditation then is to get beyond your analytical mind, slow your brain waves down, enter the operating system where the programs are, and then rehearse a new program. Rewrite a new program, condition the body to a new program, and change those self-limiting beliefs into more unlimited beliefs. Does that make sense? Yes. And you've been doing that, yes? So then, some people have a very thin veil between their conscious mind and their subconscious mind. They can get beyond their analytical mind very easily. Others of us have a little bit more dense analytical mind, and we have to work a little harder to get beyond it. But I'm telling you, if you apply the formula, just what you've been doing, have you noticed in your meditations that analytical mind just pops up every now and then, you notice it and you keep going? Yes? You have control over it because you start to master it. And so now you can choose what you want to be suggestible to in your life. And whatever you choose to be suggestible to, be ready to experience. That's it. And if you're watching TV and you're watching violence, well, you're programming yourself for that. And people say to me all the time, oh, you should see this movie. And I say, really, is there any violence? No. And I say, what's the body count? I don't know, 50. Oh, okay. Good thing it's not violent. What's the number for violence? All right, here we go. Now, the more analytical you become, the less suggestible you are to information. Would you agree? Because suggestibility is your ability to accept the information, to believe it, to surrender to it without analyzing it. So if you're analytical, you're going to be less suggestible. If you suppress your analytical mind, you become more suggestible to information. Would you agree with that? And check this out then. If you move into a state of trance, if you do it properly, you're going to begin to become more suggestible because you're going to be less analytical and you have to slow your brain waves down to do that. Yes or no? Yes. By the same means, if you perk your brain waves up into higher frequencies, you're going to become overly analytical and less suggestible to information, and you're not going to be able to move into trance. Does that make sense? Yes. So then when you gaze into the kaleidoscope, and we are working on a brand new, beautiful one, even more evolved one, that hopefully will be out by the end of this year or beginning of next year. When you gaze into that kaleidoscope, and I ask you to relax, I want you to keep working on checking in with your body and slowing it down, just like you have been, relaxing it more, checking in with your whole entire body and relaxing it. As you're relaxing it, you're allowing your brain waves to slow down. And I want you to feel so relaxed that you want to close your eyes. But you don't. Just like when you're laying on the couch, you got to watch the end of the show. It's exactly what I want you to do. I just want you to stay conscious and keep working on letting your body fall asleep. And you'll move into those slower brainwave state that creates more suggestibility. Does that make sense? Yes. So then we move from high-range beta to mid-range beta to low-level beta. We cross the analytical mind. Now we're in alpha. We can move into theta and ultimately into delta. And we're slowing our brain waves down as we cross the analytical mind. Does that make sense? So beta goes to, alpha goes to, theta goes to, and beta and alpha represent the conscious mind, and alpha, theta, and delta represent the subconscious mind. Are you with me still? Now, will you be suggestible to information in alpha? Yes. Are you more suggestible to information in theta? Because you suppress more analytical function and lights are out in the neocortex. So then our research shows then, as you slow your brain waves down, and you do this properly, the less activity in the thinking neocortex, you start seeing more activity in the limbic brain, the seat of the subconscious mind. We have research to show that's true, and I'll show you that research tomorrow. In other words, as consciousness flows out of the thinking brain and it moves into these subconscious centers, you can begin to program your subconscious mind in the way that you want. In a sense, just like the placebo. You give someone a sugar pill, a saline injection. You perform some false surgery or treatment. And a certain percentage of those people are going to accept they're going to believe, and they're going to surrender to the thought that they're getting the actual substance or treatment. And they begin to program their autonomic nervous system, listen to this, to make the exact pharmacy of chemicals equal to the substance that they think they're taking. That's how programmable that autonomic nervous system is. Now here's the question. Was it the inert substance that did the healing, or was it the body's innate capacity to heal? Are you with me still? Yes. So then, 4 out of 5 people that are in a depression study that are given a placebo, 4 out of 5 of those people will respond as well as the person who's given the antidepressant. And when they do the brain scans and they see the change in the brain scans, they realize that those people are making their own pharmacy of antidepressants by thought alone. So you can program your autonomic nervous system once you get beyond your analytical mind to begin to create more health in your body. Would you agree? And now you don't need the exogenous substance to do it. You're programming it subconsciously. Does that make sense? That's where we want to go, yes? Now check this out. This right here, this red point right here is representing a lot of theta in the brain while this person is gazing into the kaleidoscope in real time. These are all theta coherent brainwave patterns. This brain is global theta. This is a snapshot of a person looking into the kaleidoscope. Are they suggestible to information? And what if then, while they were in that state, while they were gazing into the kaleidoscope, instead of you hearing, it's flu season, have you gotten your flu shot? And then all the kids are smiling and they have their Band-Aids on and they're all, yes, we got ours. And, oh, I'm the only one that didn't. Uh-oh. Instead of that, what if we had you move into trance and we faded an image through the kaleidoscope of a mystical experience? And I said, you know, Jane, this could happen to you. And if you're suggestible to information, and I say to you, if I say, what is happening to this person? How do you think that they feel? Remember this image. All you need is an image or a brand and a feeling. And if I talk to you with your eyes open while you're suggestible to information, and I ask you to keep remembering the image, and I keep asking you, experience it. What would it be like to experience that? Your brain would start imagining, in a sense, in alpha or in theta. And then, if I asked you to close your eyes, and I gave you a little bit of time in the blackness, as you slowed down, your brain waves would slow down into theta. And then, if I started talking to you with your eyes closed and say, remember the image, what was happening in that scene? What was that a person experiencing, and how would it feel? Feel it. And then I say, remember the image. As I do this, if you're in theta, your subconscious mind can literally grab that image and begin to animate it, and you could begin to program yourself into a mystical moment. How many people understand? So we'll use the kaleidoscope then as a way to induce trance, and then we'll bleed some images in, and I'll talk to you. And as I talk to you, and you keep your eyes on it, and you close your eyes, and I talk to you again, I'll give you some time to just remember the image and allow you to produce that stimulus and that response, and we'll start programming you subconsciously for a mystical experience. Then I'll have you open your eyes, tune back into the pineal gland, tune into the energy of the mystical within you and way out around you, and you tune in. As you tune in to the energy of the mystical, open your focus and gaze into the center of the kaleidoscope. You move back into trance. I let you get back into a trance state. We bleed another image in. Does that make sense? And we go back and forth with a few images, and then we lay you down. Now, before I tell you what happens when you lay down, let me finish a few more slides here. Now, this is the beginning of before the person starts the kaleidoscope, and you can see they're in low-level beta. And that's what low-level beta looks like. Green is normal, so there's not a whole lot going on in there. Now, this person is gazing into the kaleidoscope, and red means theta. Eyes open, they're producing theta brainwave patterns. They're very suggestible to information. Would you agree? They're kind of asleep, resting, somewhat asleep, and their brain and mind are awake. You got it? Now, what if, and tomorrow we'll start using our mind movies, what if when a person was in a suggestible state like this, they gazed into their mind movie? And now, watch what happens to this person while they're looking at their mind movie. That's gamma brainwave patterns here. Whatever they're experiencing is real to them. They're living that future. And they're actually awakened to experience it. They're more conscious of it. And they're creating long-term memories here. Are you with me still? Their brain looks like they already experienced it. You got it? Now check it out. Here's a normal brain. This is now gamma. This is the person watching their mind movie in gamma after they came out of theta. The brain is aroused with information. It's alivened with information. The person is living it. They're experiencing it fully. And if they experience it, experience enriches circuitry in the brain. And experience produces emotion, and they're starting to feel it in their body. And they're changing their brain and body to look like it has already happened because they're suggestible. How many people understand? Does this make sense? Now look at this person, comes out of theta, and this is gamma here, watch. While they're watching their mind movie. And then of course the brain has to pause a little bit here because it's a lot of information. It needs to settle down, and then it acclimates, and then it goes again, and then it settles down, and there's these bursts of gamma. And the person's living that future. I don't know how else to say it. Does that make sense? And tomorrow we'll practice with the Kaleidoscope and the mind movies, but today I want to practice with the Kaleidoscope and using the mystical images to program you. Now, when we go back and forth with the Kaleidoscope, when we finish, I'm going to ask you to lay down on your back. And when you lay down on your back, I want to keep you in a state of theta so you don't fall too quickly into delta and fall asleep because you'll miss the door. Does that make sense? So we do this breathing technique when you lay down to oxygenate the brain so that you kind of hang out in theta without falling too quickly into delta. So you understand the purpose of it. Yes? Now some of you may not want to do it because you're too tired. Well, you're going to miss the door then. You're going to fall into delta. But if you want the mystical, you're going to do this breath with us. And the breath is just like this. You inhale through your nose all the way to the back, and you exhale. And then I go faster. And I go faster. And I say, hold it. And you hold your breath, and all of a sudden you feel a little lightheaded. You feel that? Now that's a little euphoria that's taking place. And if you can stay in that feeling of euphoria, and you'll stay in a level of theta before you pass into delta, and you'll hover around that door where you can have that mystical experience, because theta is the door. How many people understand? So here's how it's going to go. We are going to play some music, and I'm going to ask you to open your awareness into the blackness, into that vacuum, where I'm going to ask you to sense space. The act of sensing space starts to slow brain waves down. We've measured it thousands of times. If you do that properly, I'm going to ask you in the next moment to put your attention on energy center number 6, your pineal gland, your brain's radio receiver. I'm going to ask you to find it, to feel it, to pay attention to it, to stay connected to it. And where you place your attention is where you place your... So now, once you have your attention on it, listen closely, I'm going to ask you, I'm going to say, tune in to the energy of the mystical. It's all around you. Now, I don't want you to do a little one. I want you to do a big beach ball, a big sphere out here. Tune in, open your awareness with that center and feel it from that center. Can you do that? Then, once you lock into that center, you feel it within you and all around you, the music will change. And when the music changes, I'll ask you to open your eyes, and the beautiful kaleidoscope will begin. You'll open your focus. Feel the energy of the mystical with your pineal gland. I'll talk to you to relax your body. And as you relax your body, you're slowing your brain waves down. Are you with me still? Yes. Then you'll open your awareness, gaze into the center of the kaleidoscope. Don't think, don't analyze, don't try to make anything happen. Just stare and receive. Just stay in that state of trance. You practice your trance and you keep relaxing your body. You practice your trance, you keep relaxing your body. After a certain point, all of a sudden you'll see an image fade into the kaleidoscope and the kaleidoscope fade out, and then I'll start talking to you. Just follow the instructions, then at a certain point I'll ask you to close your eyes, and we'll do a round of a few of these, and then we'll lay down and we'll do that breath. Can you keep up with me on that breath? Yes? Now, when we were in Malta, and we did this with the other group in Malta, they were so passionate, they went for it. And if I say, inhale, exhale, inhale, exhale, inhale, exhale, inhale, exhale, I want you to keep up with me. Don't try to anticipate, just keep my pace. And if I start increasing the pace, you increase the pace. If you just hear me breathing, you just breathe with me, okay? If I go a little further than where you want to go, there's a reason for that. Will you keep up? I just want you to get into it, okay? And then I'll ask you to hold your breath, and then I'll ask you to exhale and feel, and I just want you to feel that feeling. Just oxygenate your brain and suppress carbon dioxide, okay? And then you'll kind of linger in that theta state, and I'll talk to you, and it'll be fun. All right? Now, if you need your glasses for the kaleidoscope, you can either wear them or put them next to you, but we're going to start off the meditation with our eyes closed. You got it? All right, here we go. Sit up. Eyes closed. Take a breath. And relax. Your body. Feel. Your body. Relaxing. More.
blackness. And become aware of the endless black space. Way out. Beyond you. How far? Can your awareness go? To endless space. How deep? Does the blackness go? Sense it. Stay aware of it. In the blackness. Stay there. Become aware. There's endless space. Sense it. Feel it. Stay connected to it. Endless space. In the blackness. Stay there. In the blackness. Become aware. There's endless space. Behind you. Sense it. Feel it. The blackness. Aware of it. It's all around you. And become the blackness. Become more of it. Less of you. Feel the blackness. Feel more more of it. Less of you. And relax. To nothing. More. Become aware. Space between the back of your throat and the back of your head, your sixth center. Find it. Feel it. Stay aware of it. Feel your connection to it. Blackness. Feel. Giving it life. With your attention. Six. Feel it. Notice it. Experience it. Its energy. Six. Feel. Six. It's life. Six. And remember this feeling. Its energy. Six. Feel. Six. The blackness. Tune in to the energy of the mystical. Find it. Feel it within you. Way out. Round you. Tune in. Receive. To 6. It's energy. 6. It's all around you. Feel it within you. 6. All around you. Tune in. Receive. 6. In the blackness. And remember, this feeling. 6. It's energy. 6. In the blackness. Tune in. Feel. To 6. It's energy. 6. In the blackness. And now, slowly open your eyes.
Slowly bring your awareness back to your body, to this environment, and to this time. And when you're ready, you can open your eyes and come back to the material world. In this space and time. And when you're ready, you can open your eyes, find someone and embrace them, and share that mystical energy.
heart to heart, body to body, mind to mind, soul to soul.